Hello and welcome back to Your Finance TV. For your look ahead at this week in the markets. Lots of Fed speakers this week will be keep the markets on their toes. And Tuesday's close will see the MSCI February quarterly index rebalance. So don't be surprised when you see that jump in volume on Tuesday. Who better than to look at the week ahead than the great Brendan McCarty, founder of Column E. Welcome back, Brendan.
The greatest, Brendan McCarty.
Okay. Before we jump into the show, don't forget to click that subscribe button below and the like buttons. They all help. And send any questions that you want to ask us on social media. For today's show, we're going to be looking at what are we going to do with these markets, Tesla's Investor Day, a deep dive in the earnings for C3AI, Celsius Holdings, and Rivian. And as always, we get into the love it, like it, leave it, and we'll save those names till the end. Last week saw the S&P fall 2.7%, and inflation data adjusted high for November and December. We sometimes forget that this data is backward looking and is also reminding people not to fight the Fed. It also looks like the word pivot may finally be removed from spell checking for journalists until at least 2024. The bulls are getting nervous, Brendan, as markets cling to positive territory for the year. How are you seeing the markets moving ahead?
So we came into the year thinking we'd see a dip in March, similar to 03. But everybody's looking for a dip in March. Everybody's looking at, like, Morgan Stanley, my old shop, is on the wires again today. Oh, big sell-off coming because valuation correction. So either it is much worse than anybody believes, or we're not going to see it, period. I think right now that the Fed is sort of, last week they got tight on money for the first time in ages, which is probably why you saw markets back off as aggressively they did late last week. I'm guessing that you probably see a similar, if the Fed continues to pull on money, so we talked about a fork. We've been talking about a fork for the last 2 months, 3 months, and it's not about the dinner plate. It's literally about the fork in the road for the Fed. Will they get aggressive on money, which will choke out inflation? Will they leave money the same way, keep raising rates, let demand reset? Go look at Canada's housing market. They stopped raising rates over there, and all of a sudden the housing market woke up. So obviously demand is not going away, and everybody keeps raising rates. So the key to the inflation story is money. So if the Fed insists on not doing anything about money, asset markets are going to rise. And today might be a little aberration in that it's month end. A lot of people went on vacation last week. You could see it everywhere across emails, across anything. And I think today they came back and started buying. But I will just say this, that everybody's looking for a sell-off next month. We may sell off for a few days, 3, 4, 5 days, maybe, or it's going to be a lot vicious than people believe. But it won't be a mild sell-off and then a rally into year end. I think we have a lot more ahead of us. So last week may have just been, if the Fed does get tight on money, and the Bank of Japan is also involved here, in that if Ueda, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but if the BOG's head decides that, all right, we can't keep fighting the rate market over there, which means flooding money in the system, which is coming into the U.S. Money's going to drop, and if money drops, assets drop. So that's how we're looking at things right now. Markets are stable. They haven't moved in 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. Yeah. And money has not moved since October. It's been neutral because BOG has been flooding, Fed has been tightening. If that dynamic changes, then markets will probably go in the direction it happened. So last week, the Fed tightened rather aggressively. We'll see if they follow through this week.
And just remember what Yogi Berra said about seeing a fork in the road. You take it.
Yeah, fair point.
All right, let's move on to Tesla. Tesla's shareholders investor event is on Wednesday. It's being live streamed as well, so get ready for CNBC cutting it to make it look like it's their own production. This could lead to extra volatility in its share price. I've seen speculation of a buyback being announced, and that would be a boost for its share price, no doubt. But just as a reminder to you all out there, just because a buyback is announced doesn't mean that they have to buy stock. Brendan, there will be a lot of information running at us on Tuesday from all sorts of different avenues for Tesla. What do you think we can see from this event?
So there's so much talk about the Model 2 on the aforementioned CNBC that I turned on for the first time in about 4 weeks today. The first comment I heard was Model 2. So I just wanted to see what they were talking about Tesla. Bloomberg is saying Model 2. Everybody's saying Model 2. Model 2 is boring. Let's just put it that way. It's a low-cost car. Let's just call it Prius 2.0. That's much better. It's a Tesla, which is cool in many people's eyes. I don't think that's the story at all. I think everybody's missing it. Elon Musk, he focuses on excitement. He's Steve Jobs in a different business. Steve Jobs wouldn't just say iPhone Model 2. I mean, Steve Jobs would come out with something more around it. Not that Steve Jobs is the name these days that you focus on him. He's been gone for a very long time. But anyway, I think the story is not about the Model 2, but I think it's about the ecosystem around the Tesla. I think you've been seeing little hints here and there about battery factories, more battery. They're going back to California for something else. Technology. I think it's the ecosystem of the Tesla. I think that's where they're heading. I don't know if the Twitter purchase was he bought Twitter for a reason. I still believe he bought it for other than controlling social media and his ego. I think there's something more to this Twitter purchase, but not sure yet. I would just say that the future, he's going to focus on the future of Tesla, and it won't necessarily be on this little Model 2, but what's around it. What's the self-driving? What's the trucks? Like, there's no mention of the truck this week. But yet Rivian has earnings later this week. Yeah. And what better would Tesla be to just sandbags Rivian's earnings by saying that they have a big truck coming out short very much quickly. I will just go with this, that there'll be more. I think there's more coming out of this than this is the new, they call this the Outlook 3 or Recap 3 or whatever Tesla's calling this, their third big announcement over the last 20 years. I would just say that there's something more coming out of this in a low-cost car. And he's cutting costs, so he's got to figure out a way to increase margins. That would be by fixing the ecosystem, making the ecosystem better. Why not? This is like the iPhone that we carry around in our pockets. Why not your car have an ecosystem around your car? Now, in terms of the stock, two different stories here. There's the story of Tesla and there's the story of the stock. The story of the stock and Bitcoin have merged for the first time in several months. So speculators are back in the stock. Whether that means, I don't know if the story matters on Tuesday, whenever they announce it, Wednesday. I think the story, you're going to hear this I think you're going to hear some good stuff out of this. I don't know. Elon's on a roll these days. I know he's fighting with Tesla and all its, not Twitter and all its people that hate Twitter and hate him. But I think there's going to be more out of this announcement than, I don't know. I've never been actually optimistic on Tesla at all. But I think there's more to this. I think there's a flair to this. Why name the event the way it is if they're coming out with just a Model 2? I mean, whoopee. Ooh. So I think there's going to be more to this. The speculators will do what they do with the stock, and I don't think either is related. So whatever happens, the announcement, the stock will do what it does. It's actually climbed over resistance for the first time in ages. So that's like Bitcoin's also rising and they merge together. So I think they're back together in terms of their ups and their downs. So people will do what they want with the stock and they'll listen to the story and we'll all talk about it later.
Yeah, I'm sure that I didn't look at the option volume, but I'm sure option volumes were picking up last week and they'll be rampant the next couple of days as well going into this. And listen, it looks like they've got back control. What was Tesla down like 70% last year?
Yeah.
It's up like 30-40% this year, maybe even double. I've got to look back at that. But listen, they love it when these announcements come out, and Tesla and Musk is not going to say anything negative. Like, this is something where he's going to be focusing on all the positives. So I think we could see a decent pop, especially the rebalance going on, and also all these different bits and pieces of positive news coming out on Wednesday.
I'll say this. One of the things I noticed about, we'll talk about Rivian later, but one of the things I noticed about all the truck makers, they're not rushing to make cars, they're rushing to make trucks. So that puts Rivian in a tough problem. Tesla has the car market, and they're growing it. And as much as I fought that idea, and I know that they still were overvalued, the stock fell. So I wasn't really wrong in that regard. But it's two different stories. It's an automaker versus its stock. Yeah,
but we'll get on to Rivian in a minute. But let's look into some of the earnings for this week a bit more in depth. And Thursday after the close, C3 AI is reporting. Unless you've been under a rock, AI is the hottest word running around at the moment. ChatGPT has Wall Street in a tither in more ways than one. They're all putting their hands up for any banking-related deals, but at the same time, they are banning the technology internally. Can you imagine AI writing research for a bank? Some may argue that's already happening, especially being outsourced to different parts of the world. Brendan, options are implying a 17% move post earnings for C3, and this is a volatile name. How should investors be looking at these earnings and playing this space for that matter?
So AI, I noticed this on Twitter last week, whenever NVIDIA reported, the key driver of NVIDIA's outlook was AI, just like it was for crypto when NVIDIA was screaming higher before. AI makes us all lazy. That's all AI does. And it's not to say AI is bad. It just makes us more efficient. The internet made us more knowledgeable. Blockchain is making us more transparent and probably more efficient. And AI is going to make certain things more efficient. But if you talk to anybody who, not anybody, but if you like we run an algo here at Column E, but I would never have it go automatically into the market. I just don't trust the AI around it. It's just what it is. I mean, I have to double it. When you make trades, you double check what you're doing, and then you place that trade. Any trader would. They don't just place trades and place thousands of contracts or whatever without verifying it. Well, imagine putting your trading systems into the hands of an AI who decides whether it's going to do that. And it's not happening. So that's why Wall Street A is not doing it. Now, there's just too much money at stake. Now, the funny thing is, a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, I came across a website called Jasper. So it's funny that you mentioned the research being written. Jasper writes blogs for you, that their AI writes blogs. It's intriguing as anything. I could sit here and just say, all right, give like 5 keywords and let the thing write a blog post for me. But it can't. That's just it. It actually has to do, you have to do more for it to, get your blog posts out. So that in the end, you're doing the same amount of work. So is the AI really worth it in that regard? No person that, in terms of research, they're still going to read all the reports. They're still going to say, all right, do I agree or disagree with this sentiment? Because does it follow the bank? They're not going to do that necessarily because that's either lazy or it's not smart because you're going to be sued. So AI is a wonderful technology that I think can fill in a lot of blanks in certain ways. I think Amazon just signed a deal with C3 AI. It's probably in certain parts of their manufacturing process that a human being does, and they want to replace it. That will lower costs because the software program is doing it, and the software program you hope adapts on the fly. Are they really going to put they're going to put AI right in the middle of their whole processes? I doubt it. Even though I know they have robots running around, so they probably already have AI running. I'll just say this: C3 AI is not profitable. I know it's a kind of an interesting technology, but why is the stock down 90%? Is this Amazon from 2002? Maybe. If AI is so hot, why is C3 all coming off the dips, but still in the dumps? So they're in the enterprise. Enterprise is very slow moving. Enterprise is like, I remember Windows X. Remember Morgan Stanley was on Windows XP when 2 versions of Windows had already come out past. Well, you know what? It's going to take a while for AI to enter a lot of processes, and I think that's going to influence C3. And I think that's what's going to show up in their earnings. And I don't know. The technology is fun. It's the same thing as crypto. Blockchain is a wonderful technology, but anybody, the companies in it are not making money. They're not super profitable, and their stock prices aren't going to the moon. I think C3 AI is another example of that, and NVIDIA eventually might be as well. Might be hype, or it's hope investors that it will drive NVIDIA's stock price high when in fact it's more hype than anything.
So what do you think from these earnings? Not that I'm putting the like it, leave it. Do you think we could see some downside from this?
Based on the way the chart is trading, I would say that you're going to see I think it's squeezed over it probably has decent short interest. It probably squeezed like everything did over the last month and a half, and I think it comes back to earth. They always post, I think this is not one of them, but I think it comes back to earth. I think it will back off post earnings. ChatGPT is OpenAI. It's OpenAI that runs that, and Microsoft is a bigger player than C3, and Microsoft is already in enterprise. C3 is a small player compared to Microsoft, so I think that the story won't be as exciting as they make it out to be.
Okay,
on their earnings side at least.
Yeah, we also know when we're building new technology and something, it always takes longer. It always costs a lot more. Now, obviously, there's a lot of money thrown at this, but we're just coming out of an era. We're still sitting in this era. It's like, hang on, these things aren't profitable. Why are we throwing so much money at them? So
because there's too much money in the system and people have to put it somewhere, right? So
Yeah.
it ends up in things like this, for right or for wrong. It is a cool technology. Don't get me wrong. AI is we use it for research purposes, and AI, it points things out to us that we didn't see, because a human brain is limited to what you see in front of you necessarily, not how you permutations of numbers. AI is a wonderful engine in that regard, but I mean, I will never put our trade. I can't say never, but you won't see me putting our AI in charge of my trading desk.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Celsius Holdings. And they report Wednesday after close. And the reason I wanted to look at this name is that I'm seeing their products more and more. Now, that could be because my kids are all over Prime, the hydration drink from Logan Paul and KSI, which seems to have taken over the world. You've seen some of the video, they were recently in Australia, and like the footage there is just crazy. Obviously, he had his boxing match last night where he got lost. But Celsius is expecting revenues of $1 billion this year. I've seen an interview with Logan Paul saying that they're expecting $450 million of revenues this year just for their Prime drink. The question I'm trying to get to here is CELH overvalued? The stock is up 44% over the last 12 months and is a very crowded space. Brendan, I'm thinking that their $7 billion market cap might reflect takeover spec in it. What do you think about this name?
So Monster was taken over by Coke,
Yep.
Pepsi, and the market cap I think was higher or lower, or somewhere in this range. Like, we're talking a different age. Everything's $1 billion these days, where it was 100 million back then. This is an interesting product. That actually, I did some research on it. It's been around for 17 years, so this is not a new product. It's an amazing amount of caffeine. Like, basically, I think, in short, I think this is a product. Yes, the YouTubers are all over it and whatnot, but I think the real story is it's an inflation substitute. The people are calling it a value stock. Is that what I saw somewhere, or a value play? Because it's a beverage company. But if you look at it, you go to look to buy it. So I drink Buy. I like Buy drinks. That's just I don't know. I think it has a little caffeine in it, but I like Buy drinks because they're low calorie. There's no artificial stuff, and they're just like water with flavor. They're cheap enough. But they run at about $22 per 16 or 18, something like that, on Amazon. If you look at these guys, they have a similar pricing, and it's like $1.50 per can. Well, if you want to replace the heavy cost of your coffee cup, which at Dunkin' right now is what, $2.99 for a medium, roughly, in given places. This is a cheaper alternative at 200 milligrams, and you're getting your caffeine overload at 200 milligrams plus all the catchy things you put inside a drink to make it look like it's a weight loss drink. Guarine, taurine, all those wonderful enes. I would just say that I think this is a fad. Where the heck has it been for the last 17 years? It hasn't been. They have wonderful flavors, it looks like, and they taste good. And it is a lot like my Buy drink, where you're not using aspartame or things to juice it. They do have a stevia version that you can add. You can get a stevia flavored one. I don't know why you would bother, but they do that too. Maybe that's their more expensive version. But yesterday I got a Red Bull, and I drink Red Bull whenever it's 110 calories for the size I'm looking for. I don't use it for energy. I don't use it for the gym, even though I look like I could use a gym a little bit. I think this is a fad. It isn't higher because the YouTubers are behind it, and the YouTubers are very, very powerful, and they have very, very big influence, probably more so than Kathy Wood, who's probably showing up soon on CNBC, from what I understand. Why is beyond me. But aside, I guess, talk to what's his name about Sark. Anyhow, I'll just say about this. I think this is this has been driven by the YouTubers, but I also think it's been driven by inflation, in that it's a cheaper alternative than drinking a cup of coffee. We're very busy. We're at home all the time. We don't have to go to a machine to buy this. We can just take it out of the closet and drink it. I think is what drove it. But if it was such a big deal and it had all these same ingredients, why wasn't this thing popular 17 years ago, or 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago? But now it's famous.
Yeah, well, Red Bull owns that space.
What?
Red Bull owns that space. They
do. You look at the shelf; they have whole cases of this stuff, and Red Bull tastes good. And I'll tell you this: yesterday, what triggered my migraine, that I had a thing of Red Bull and a cup of coffee. I think that's equivalent to what this is. The come down from that hurts if you're not prepared for it. So you can burn it off at the gym, but is that really, I don't, and they're not profitable. So they got a $7 billion market cap without profits. And I would be really wary. The short interest of 25%, though, too many people see the same story that it's overvalued. You got to get that number down before it really starts to fall, I would think. I mean, that's 25% short interest. They can't get to 50. I suppose they could, but it's got to fall for this. The story needs to be ignored, or it has to be discounted by less people before it falls. Either that, it's going to go sideways, and maybe that's what's going to happen. It might be a takeover candidate. I don't know what Monster went for. That's probably the multiple you would look at. Monster was a very profitable entity, though, when it got sold. It was $4 billion. I know that now. Yeah. Monster got sold for $4 billion. So it's probably takeover speculation, if anything.
Yeah. And just mental note, Prime Energy, which is the other part related to Logan Paul. It's double the amount of caffeine as Red Bull has. It's banned in Australia. So don't touch that to avoid those migraines.
It's like grain alcohol. Like, grain is banned in like every state in the union except for 4. There's a reason that it's banned, because it's got too much alcohol in it. Well, where's Celsius fall? 200 milligrams of caffeine is a lot of caffeine.
Yeah.
And go to the gym. Like, honestly, I had a heart murmur growing up. I don't think my body can withstand that much caffeine prior to working out. My heart moves hard enough. It's carrying all this weight, It's like, anyway, moving on.
All right, let's jump on to Rivian so we can get away from caffeine. It seems like it's still going through your veins. Rivian reports Tuesday aftermarket. And I've seen a lot more of their vehicles driving around my neck of the woods. They're good-looking trucks. Consensus estimates are a loss of $1.89 per share. Short increase has decreased 8.9% since its last earnings release. It now stands at 5.75%. Rivian's share price is 47.3% lower as of Friday's close from its last earnings release, and option traders are pricing in a 15.9% move. Brendan, I feel like people are becoming more bullish on Rivian. What do you think in this thing?
So I think Bloomberg said this best. Unprofitable EVs are the most vulnerable to an auto slowdown. Rivian is an unprofitable EV, and we have an auto slowdown. They specifically cited the Silverado and the F-150. Those are 2 main competitors, I think. Rivian is a cool-looking car, but I don't know if they can survive. I mean, it's the stock's going down for a reason. We've talked about Rivian a ton. I think last earnings report was in the 30s, and it was on it was a love it, leave it option at one point, where I think it went down to 27. We did a leave and it fell, and it was like, that's the first time that one worked. But I mean, Rivian's tough. It's a tough player. I would just say that they get their material costs are too high. Metal prices are starting to turn back up again in certain cases. I know industrial metals aren't falling. I think Rivian's getting crowded out. I mean, I can't. I do see the trucks around occasionally, but it's not mainstream enough. Like, a Tesla goes to a Model 2, they're going to touch on a lot of younger people getting a Tesla, right? Can you sell a Rivian at Model 2 prices? Probably not. You're still selling them in the $50,000 or the $60,000 range, and you put it that high, you're losing the tax credit for the United States. So I would just say Rivian's story is getting worse. I would think if the economy were to turn for the better, auto prices got cheaper and rates fell, Rivian might be more interesting. EV is backed off a lot. I mean, Tesla has risen, but EV in general is a story that people looking at it's like ESG. People look at it a little bit more stringent these days, I guess, lack of a better word. Yeah. Cash burn is really high. They think they're going to miss on the production for this quarter. So if anything surprises, that stuff could come in and say, all right, they surprise, maybe there's a turn for the better. That happens every time with Rivian. When it's dead, it all of a sudden rises. I think it was dead several times before. So I would say this earnings report could help it, but they're very vulnerable to this environment. Gasoline prices are coming off from their highs, which means substituting from EV to from gasoline to electric is falling. It's all part of the same story. So I would just say that it'll be an interesting report. Not many analysts think it's going to be that good. But if traders are pulling back on it in terms of short interest, that might also be just a symbolic of what happened in this environment the last 6 weeks. So I'm not too optimistic on this. Bloomberg's had this name pretty good lately, and I think that if the Silverado and the F-150 are pushing harder, they're more mainstream, right?
Yeah.
That's like if you're an F-150 owner, you're going to buy an F-150 probably versus a Rivian. You don't even know what a Rivian is, probably.
Yeah, F-150's got the electric one out now or coming out. You got GMC's also coming out with their electronic truck is coming out at the start of next year. So there is competition coming into the space. Here's a little quick question for you before we go into the Triple L. Is what happens to Rivian now if they go out of business, and what happens to the owners of those trucks? Because it's not as if in the old days if a model got shut down and so forth, it was easy to get those parts.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not so much. Like you're left with an $80,000 truck that you can't get serviced, and I got to imagine an EV truck needs a little bit more service than your average car on the road.
Well, it's like a Tesla, right? There's not many dealerships that you can fix a 2017 Tesla, right?
Yeah.
Now they're popping up. I mean, there's a Tesla dealership. There's a Tesla repair factory in Danvers. So it's huge. I think you just drive your car in, the machine picks it up. You just walk to the coffee shop. It drives it around the little factory, and then I'm making that up. I have no idea what happens.
You don't think it happens like Iron Man, where they just like take bits of off and screw back on?
Thing breaks apart, all put back together. Your car comes out all brand new, plus a $35,000 new battery. I'll just. I don't know if they're going to go out of business. I think because they have a product that's pretty cool that maybe they're a takeout candidate at some point. Was Rivian the one owned by Amazon? Was that a different one? Did Amazon and Ford both own Rivian?
No, that was a rival, wasn't it?
Was it? I don't know who it was.
I think they invested in a rival. They were going to do the buses, I thought, or trucks.
Oh, that was. I mean, Rivian. They say Rivian's trucks are actually better than Ford's F-150 in terms of its payload. Is it called payload? No, it's a missile. Whatever it might be, it carries stuff better and it drives longer. That was the F-150's problem. Ford's going to fix that. Whether they do it with maybe they do it with Rivian's technology. I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting story. These EVs come and go. If China turns back on and everybody in China wants a truck, that would be kind of interesting. But there is like Neo's, Lucid, those companies are already over there. Tesla's already over there, and they have a truck coming. Like going back to the presentation, the Tesla truck has not been mentioned anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Elon Musk brings that up. Who knows? So it's the stock is a dog. It looks like it's going to $16. The story isn't great. I don't know. It needs a good report to turn the story.
Well, the Tesla truck also looks like a soapbox derby sort of thing, but let's move on. Let's wrap it up. We've got like it, love it, leave it, people, and we're sticking with this earnings theme this week because there's still plenty of good companies reporting. All right, we're going to start with Target. TGT, they report Tuesday pre-market.
So the management team from the worst management team in the business. No, I'm just kidding. They weren't great last year. We'll leave it at that. Leave it. We're leaving the stock. Failed in the 65-week and moving lower towards a 20-week break there, and the previous lows come into play.
All right. Also on Tuesday pre-market is Advanced Auto Parts.
Leave it. Break of 140 sets up 136. And then if it breaks through there, it sets up 120s.
The symbol that I always mix up with its name, Salesforce, they report Wednesday after the close.
Another one, I would leave it. Broke support at 165 after failing the 65 week with 65 week at 176. Looks like 159 may provide support. I think every earnings report they bust out to the upside. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I would leave it for now.
All right, Best Buy. We'll see the numbers up if they sold any extra TVs. Thursday pre-market.
I like it. I found support at 82.5, bounced. It's not necessarily a positive, great-looking chart, but the market's buying it, so we like it right now.
Okay. Thursday after the close is Costco. Always busy every time I'm there. Costco.
Yeah, it's funny. Their prices are going up, strangely enough. I think they've lost control a little bit in terms of their suppliers. I'd leave it. Broke through support at the 65 week the last week, though barely. Next level is 460. They came off during the last leap through. I think we covered them last report, and they came off hard. This was a great stock. It's just I think they're losing power over their sellers, their who they buy from, the distributors.
Losing their pricing power. Victoria's Secret, VSCO, that's the last one we've got, Thursday after the close.
So we talked about this in depth last time, I think, if
Yeah.
I'm mistaken. And they were turning at the time. I think the story might be over. I think it's leave it. We're in a quiet period in terms of the consumer slowing down tax time. So I'd leave it. It broke support at 40. Looks like it wants to test the lower range. Maybe it may have had its run and now it's going to recap some of that.
All right. Listen, Brendan, thank you very much. I know we've gone over the half hour here, but there was a lot of good chat there on ChatGPT, that's for sure.
We chatted definitely a lot.
Good luck with this winter storm that's coming through, and you have a great week.
You too. Take it easy now.
And for everyone else out there, good luck investing.